Have you noticed that things we buy today are more expensive than they were a few years ago? This is called inflation. Inflation happens when the general price of goods and service increase, causing our money to buy less than before. It affects everyone from student, business and government. So, in this video, we'll explain that inflation is, why it happened and why it matters.
So, the main problem faced by Malaysians today is the rising cost of living due to inflation, which has caused the price of essential goods such as food, housing, utilities and daily services to increase significantly. This situation puts pressure on middle-income households and university students. This will be linked to current news, specifically reports from Berita Harian on September 23, 2025. The country's inflation rate increased by 1.3% in August 2025, when the Consumer Price Index (CPI) recorded 134.9 compared to 133.2 in the same month last year, according to the Department of Statistics Malaysia (DOSM). In its statements, driven notably by increases in housing, food and daily necessity costs, which indicates the cost of living for many households continues to climb. According to news reports, this upward pressure on everyday expenses means that individuals, especially university students and middle-income families, increasing struggle to cover basics such as food, utilities, rent, and education supplies without compromising other aspects of daily living. This situation demonstrates that inflation is not just an economic statistics, but a real challenge affecting the financial well-being and lifestyle of many Malaysians. As you can see right here, this is the statistic by DOSM shows that Malaysian inflation increased to 1.3% in August 2025, slightly higher than 1.2% in July 2025. This shows a moderate rise in the overall cost of living. Urban inflation was 1.3%, while rural inflation was lower at 0.9%, indicating that living costs are higher in the urban areas. The main contributors to inflation were food and beverage, which is 2.0%, education 2.4%, and restaurant and accommodation services 3.5%. On the other hand, price for clothing and footwear negative 0.1%, and information and communication negative 5.6% decline. Overall, the inflation trend from August 2025 to August 2025 overall the inflation trend from August 2024 to August 2025 shows that inflation remains stable and under control. In conclusion, Malaysian inflation increased slightly in August 2025 but remained manageable, with food and services being the main contributors.
So, what are the reasons behind inflation? One of the reasons inflation occurs is because people have more money to spend on goods and services, causing demand to increase faster than the economic ability to supply them. For example, during holiday season, airline companies often raise ticket price too drastically because they know that consumers are willing to pay higher price. Another example occurs when the economy is booming. As incomes rise, people tend to spend more to improve their standard of living, which further increases overall demand and contribution to inflation. Next, monetary inflation. Sometimes, the government increases the money supply to stimulate economic growth. However, printing too much money can reduce the value of money itself. This happens because when people have more money, they are able to purchase more goods and services. As a result, sellers increase price to match the higher demand, especially when supply cannot increase at the same pace. This imbalance between demand and supply leads to higher inflation. A real-world example is Zimbabwe, where excessive money printing by the government caused hyperinflation, showing how uncontrolled growth in the money supply can severely reduce the purchasing power of money. Next, cost-push inflation. Cost-push inflation occurs when the cost of production input increase, such as higher price for raw material like oil and steel. When production costs rise, producers are forced to increase the price of goods and services in order to maintain profit margins. Natural disaster can also disrupt production process or supply chains, leading to shortage and higher price as firms attempt to recover losses. Last but not least, when a country currency weakens relative to other currency, imported goods become more expensive in domestic terms. The rise of production costs for firms that rely on imported inputs and increased price for imported consumer goods. Currency depreciation may result from capital outflows, trade imbalance, political uncertainty, or change in global interest rate. As the domestic currency lost value, inflationary pressure intensive, particularly in economics that are highly dependent on foreign goods and services.
First, the Malaysian government control inflation through targeted subsidies. This means subsidies are given only to people who really need them, especially low and middle income households. According to the Star, the government provides subsidies for essential items like rice, sugar, cooking oils and fuel through programs such as Pudi 95. This approach helps reduce the cost of living, prevent subsidy misuse and keep price of basic goods stable. As a result, people's purchasing power is protected and inflation pressure is reduced. Next, the government focuses on increasing local food production and managing food imports. According to RTM Berita, Malaysia aims to reduce dependence on imports for important foods items like rice and poultry. By supporting farmers, improving agriculture and planning imports properly, food supply become more stable. When food supply is stable, prices do not rise too fast, which help control inflation and protect consumers from global price fluctuations. Lastly, inflation is controlled through monetary policy, especially the overnight policy rate or OPR. According to Bank Negara Malaysia and the Edge Malaysia, the OPR was maintained at 2.75% to support economic stability. When the OPR is higher, borrowing becomes more expensive and people spend less. This helps slow down demand and control rising price. Overall, adjusting the OPR helps keep inflation under control and maintains a balanced economy. Thank you.
Inflation reduces purchasing power. This means that with the same amount of money, we can buy less goods and services than before. For example, money that we save today for future goals such as retirement, buying a house or even education may not be enough in the future because prices keep increasing over time. In Malaysia's dynamic economic environment, inflation affects not only big purchases but also daily expenses such as food, transportation and utilities. As prices rise year by year, households are forced to spend more just to maintain the same standard of living. A simple example, food price. In the back of 1970s, people could buy a complete plate of nasi lemak for only 50 cents. However, in the 2025, the same amount of money is not enough even for the basic food items. This clearly shows how price increase over time due to inflation. Another important effect of inflation is that it does not affect everyone equally. When the household spend more of their income on certain items like food or fuel, these items are given a larger weight in the Consumer Price Index (CPI). The larger the weight, the more it influences the overall inflation rate in Malaysia.
In summary, inflation affects our daily spending, saving, and overall economic stability. When inflation is well controlled, it happens the economic growth. However, high inflation can reduce purchasing power and increase the cost of living. Understanding inflation helps us make smarter financial decisions.